I love doing the clap. I love it.
All right, take one.
You're ready for the clap?
Right.
Yes. The first time I came here was with Millie and Deb, my old band, which was sort of a disaster actually. Basically, no one sponsored us to come out here, so we did this tour where we sold a special t-shirt design. It was like, get us to South by, and we bought our own plane tickets, and we didn't have the right documentation, and we sort of, I seem to remember we flew in somewhere else, because if you fly into Austin, they check your visas. And then, you know, we were sleeping on this punk kid's floor and everything, and we managed to sort out one show, and we played to about 15 English people who are all the people we already knew who were in Austin. I also cut my hand up really badly in a pile of glass. I've still got some glass in this hand from that. It wasn't quite what South by is supposed to be. So that was the first time, and then many times since then. In 2009 I had the Archetypal South by Southwest experience, which is that I basically showed up whilst we were sort of talking to a bunch of labels, and then by the end of it, Epitaph and me were ready to go. The last show that they had me booked, they'd let the timing go wrong, so by the time I took the stage, they let me play for 10 minutes, and I was supposed to play for like 40, and like all the executives were there and everything, and I was like, that's ridiculous. So I grabbed my guitar and went and stood in the middle of 6th Street and just played. And everyone came and stood in a big circle, and it was sort of a magic moment, do you know what I mean? It blew my voice out pretty hard because I was yelling because it's very noisy on 6th Street, but it was a good time.
The first time it was a tragedy, the second time it's a farce.
It was August 2016, we did a tour, a US tour, full US tour with our friends in Flogging Molly, and it was during the Trump-Clinton face-off, if you like, and it was just a really fractious and feverish time to be in the United States, and I am first and foremost a strong cheerleader for the United States. I love this country, I love the culture, I love the people. And so it was quite galling, quite dismaying to see a lot of that. You know, one of the things I feel about Trump is like the caricature that quite a lot of European people who don't really know America would draw of Americans. And I've spent so much time kind of saying to people in sort of barroom arguments in the UK, it's like, no, America isn't actually like that. And now I'm the idiot, do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I just sort of felt the need to respond in some way, but also I didn't really want it to be like a partisan record particularly. I didn't want it to be like cheering for one side. To me, the essence of liberalism is like cheering for the referee in a football game. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I know people have different opinions, and I know some Trump supporting Americans who are friends of mine, and there are people on that side of the aisle who come to my shows, and that's good, that's fine, I like that. It's more about the tone with which we conduct our disagreements, you know, and I feel like probably because of social media, because in social media you have arguments with people that you can't see, which automatically dehumanizes your opponent. We've sort of reached this stage in our society where like every argument becomes totally vicious and extreme and weird straight away, and I think that's really, really dangerous. I'd like to think that, you know, if I felt the need to alienate people, then I would. And so there's a song on the new record called Make America Great Again, which is going to irritate some people. I mean, that is my problem with this kind of nativism and that kind of populist movement, is this idea that Make America Great Again. America is great. It is awesome. I love it. You know, there are problems. Of course there are problems. But yeah, it just seems to me the people shouting that and wearing that stupid hat have sort of misidentified what's great about America. And the reason that the lyrics of that song mention, there are many things I could mention, but one of the specific thing it mentions is Ellis Island, and that idea, and the slogan on the base of the Statue of Liberty that says, "Give me your poor, you're hungry, you're dispossessed." That's a wonderful humanitarian gesture, and I think one for the ages, and one that Americans everywhere should be proud of. It's a piece of provocation, to a degree, but and you know, I like being sort of provocative in songs from time to time. It's a good thing to do. But you know, I mean, hopefully people, even the people who disagree with me on that song, will trouble to listen to the nuance of the lyrics. I mean, it's 2018. I'm aware that that's probably not going to happen in quite a few cases, but a boy can dream. The merch has already been printed up and sold. Do you know what I mean? So anyone wearing one of those hats now is on my team.
Make America great again by making racist a shame again. Let's make a positive passive again. Let's make America great again.
I have this weird corner of my music taste which comes from the fact that my cousin used to run a record store that sold progressive electronic records in around the time I left school and I moved to London and I was broke and largely unemployed, and I would go and spend my afternoons sitting in his record store just listening to records. I had a brief attempt to make that kind of music back then, and it was an abject disaster. So I joined another punk band. I've always had a bit of an interest in that. I mean, it's not just that kind of stuff. I've also been very interested. I read a book by Simon Reynolds called Rip It Up and Start It Again about the post-punk movement musically, and that was very inspirational to read. Just thinking a lot about that kind of moment when, as Simon Reynolds puts it, it's like the rhetoric of punk rock, which initially was sort of political, started being applied to the music as well, which is to leave kind of traditional music structure and instrumentation behind. And you end up in the mid-'80s with some really interesting kind of intelligent, thought-provoking pop music. So I was messing around with loops and sort of cut and shut, and with synthesizers. We had a synthesizer week while we were making the album, which was great fun. I spent an entire morning trying to make a bass synthesizer turn on. Why isn't it making any fucking sound? But we got there in the end. Yeah, and you know, I mean, I don't want to over-egg it, do you know what I mean? It's still essentially a rock record, and it's still me writing the songs, and I'm something of a traditionalist in terms of my song structuring and that kind of thing. But it was really fun to kind of push the boat out into areas that I don't naturally exist in. One of the other things was I've been doing a lot of DJing recently in the sort of indie clubs where you sort of get paid to stand on a podium and press play on like The Killers or whatever, do you know what I mean? And then you get drunk in public and they get paid at the end. But one of the ththings I sort of figured out whilst doing that is I don't really in my catalogue have any songs that survive all that well in a club format. And Talking Heads actually was a big influence on the record as well. I read David Byrne's book, How Music Works, which was very interesting in the way that he constructs music in this really sort of postmodern way, and that was really interesting to me as well. I feel that artists have a duty to change, actually, apart from AC/DC, you can do whatever they want. But you know, artists have a duty to evolve and not repeat themselves. And it's funny, there is a certain type of music fandom which is extremely conservative, with which I have no truck. And the thing is, I got over this years ago because it was when I released my first album after my first EP. There were already people kind of going, whoa, it's not what it used to be. And it's kind of like, all right, fuck off. That was an easy bar to clear, do you know what I mean? It's not my duty to please other people with my music. It's my duty to make the best art that I can. And just there are a lot of people who spend their days kind of going, I wish it was how it was before, which is a conservative viewpoint, and it's not really one that I subscribe to. At the same time, I'm not going to be one of those artists who ditches their old material. I mean, I played a song off my first album this afternoon in the session that I did, and I loved it, and I will keep playing old material all the way through. Right. And all of the songs on the new record survive in a solo format as well. I can play them on an acoustic guitar, and that's what I've been doing all this week. But you know, I will try and change. I've got 6 records in a certain furrow. It's cool, it's time to do something else. That it's going to lose its mind. First people who need a shout out the Sleeping Souls, my band. They've been my band for a decade now. And when I started kind of going down this route sort of philosophically, I was pleased that everybody was actually really excited about the idea rather than kind of wary of it, do you know what I mean? A lot of the arrangement, the ideas, the sort of basic ideas that I had were very much fleshed out by those guys, do you know what I mean? For example, some of the drum loop stuff, I was like, it would be cool if it was like a loop. And then Nigel goes and does the hard work of making what I'm talking about. And then Josh and Austin and Chris from Nile City Sound in Fort Worth, they made the Leon Bridges record. And when I was having this brief moment in time of thinking about making a soul album, that was an obvious conversation to have because of that. That soul idea was kind of like it didn't really have legs. I think it's a lovely idea. I don't think I have the skills to do that just yet in my life. Maybe one day. But we'd already started a conversation. And so I started throwing kind of reference points at those guys, and they were just completely unflappable. Like I'd literally be kind of sitting there kind of saying like, you know, can, and they'd be like, cool, and I'd be like, scrittybility, and they're like, cool, and it was like, oh, okay, right, well, Neil Young, and they're like, yeah, no problem. And we just got on well, and it was a great experience. I'm aware of the possible faults in the following statement, which we'll get to, but like, I feel really fortunate that like at 36 and 7 albums into a solo career and blah, 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 and however you want to put it, I feel possibly more fertile in terms of ideas for songwriting than I ever have, actually, because I'm working on 2 other side projects and writing music for a play at the minute, and like I'm just writing a lot, like all the time, and I'm writing another book, and there's just loads of stuff going on. It's possible that it's all dross. That's not really for me to say, but I don't think it is. You know, I actually think this new record's the best thing I've done, and I'll put my money down and say that. I feel like a lot of people, after a certain point in time, start kind of running a little dry. Do you know what I mean? And it's really, I have no idea why, but it feels really good to sit here and be able to say, yeah, I've just like got ideas. Songwriting is an art and a craft, and like you can't do anything about the art side. It's either there or it's not. But the craft side of it, yeah, it's a muscle you can practice and all the rest of it. Yeah.
And where the dry line stands is hard to.
In 2014, me and Matt, who plays keys in my backing band, Sleeping Souls, and Ben, who's the drummer in Million Dead, did a record together called Mongol Horde, which is like super aggressive and kind of absurdist hardcore in terms of the lyrics. I mean, like the first song we put out is a Flight of Fancy about Natalie Portman's tapeworm escaping and leading an uprising in Hollywood to reclaim back royalties because they were secretly the acting talent. So we did that in 2014, we did a record, we did a tour. Actually, in January this year, we did another tour, kind of for a laugh, because I had a bit of spare time and we did 4 shows. But in the process of rehearsing for that and getting ready for it, we've actually written another pile of songs. So not enough for an album yet, but that is one of the things that I'm sort of working on. And it's what's fun about that is it's like sort of Mr. Hyde. Do you know what I mean? It's just it's the completely like sarcastic, negative, vicious part of my character comes out in those lyrics, and it's really fun. Because it's a heavy band, do you know what I mean? But yeah, we toured in January, and actually, madly enough, it was like the biggest tour that band's ever done. Like, we sold out all the venues, and we were playing to more people than that band's ever played to, and it was like, oh shit, okay. Maybe we should make more music, so we're working on that.
Blacking in and out in a strange flat in East London. Somebody I don't really know just gave me something to help settle me down and to stop me from always thinking about you.